Spoilers for Matrix Resurrections. You have been warned. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Script Department. This is John. I'm joined today by Marcus Armstrong. We're going to be talking about The Matrix Resurrections. But before we get into that, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, do check out our website, thescriptdepartment.net, for all the latest projects that we get up to, including script readings from the best unproduced work from our global network of screenwriters. You can also follow us on social media, hit the links in the description. And if you haven't already, do check out our podcast, The Script Department, available on all major podcasting platforms, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So, Marcus, let's talk about The Matrix Resurrections. Before we get into that, I'd like to get a sense of where you are with the Matrix films in general. Are you a fan of this franchise?
I, despite myself, love this franchise. It's one of those things that the first film is one of those. I'm not covering any new ground by saying it. It's one of those era defining movies. I think 99 was a pretty exceptional year for film, and that comes in right at the top of it. And then came the sequels, and there's no secret in the fact that they didn't really measure up to the promise of the first film, and yet I revisit them, and yet I love them, and yet I go back and so much of the best action stuff comes from those sequels, and so much of the great kind of pushes forward in visual effects come from those sequels, and despite the convoluted and heavy sometimes nonsensical stuff, such as the architect. I love that scene with the architect. I absolutely love it. I love Neo. I love seeing Keanu Reeves do something with his face. It's extraordinary. I love him, in all of the different screens, and you see his entire range played out before you. All 2 episodes of that, and it's you'll come to realize I'm a huge Keanu Reeves fan, but the original trilogy, the original film stands alone for me as something wonderful. The 2 sequels are also there and extend the story, but so I love it, and they came out when I was just a wee small lad, very, very small actually. I was very tiny in 1999. And so I've kind of grown up with them, and so I approached the Matrix Resurrections with all full of excitement and hope, and probably shouldn't have done that.
I'm the same actually, and it's great to hear that you such a ringing endorsement for the original trilogy. I really love the first film, but I don't have this kind of reverence for it like a lot of people do. I think it's a great film, no question. I think it pushes so many boundaries on so many different levels. But I also found that, maybe it's the screenwriter in me, I do find the story to be a very safe story. I've always compared it more to like a Rocky movie, where it's this, this guy wasting his potential, plucked from obscurity, trained to be the best, and taking on the champ at the end. And that is pretty much the structure, beat for beat, of the Matrix. Finding his love interest along the way, Trinity watching from ringside, so to speak. It's very much that kind of story. And I've always argued that the first Matrix film is more genetically similar to a Rocky film than it is to its own sequels. But that's also why I really like the sequels, because I think the sequels, they're not masterpieces. The second film doesn't even have much of a story to tell, really. I watched them again last year for the first time in a long time, a very, very long time. I watched them last year, and I enjoyed the scenes in The Matrix Reloaded. I didn't enjoy the overall narrative experience, but that highway chase still holds up today.
Great.
Matrix Revolutions, I really got sucked into. I really enjoyed that way more. That was the one I liked the least before, and now it was the one that I really enjoyed the most. I think the battle cry that the commander makes, where he says, if we have to give our lives, we give them hell before we do. It's like this short,
Yeah, of
concise battle cry. It doesn't drag on for ages like a Lord of the Rings film or anything, which has great,
course.
motivational speeches. But this is like a really, like, I don't have the patience for this war. Let's just get it over with. I'm an old man as it is.
Yeah, all the
Yeah,
time.
I'm like, I don't have much time left. Let's just get on with this, and it's just this really great, concise, and it's a real screenwriter's speech, and I love it.
I think the third of the trilogy is the stakes become very human. That they're massive, but you get to spend a bit more time in Zion, and you've had that build up in the second, and then when you get to the third, you get to see what happens then. I think you feel it. I think you really feel the idea that this is humanity feels very vulnerable and very kind of stuck there, and then these great hulking sentinels coming into the dock, and is it the general who just swears? That's his only line. Just God damn it the whole time, and they're like, it's just great, not creative but great, and I think you just feel it. I think it's very visceral. I think it's the tie up of, which actually is one of my main points with Resurrections, the way it ties up Neo and Trinity and has them together, and they go right to the end and together, and Neo having to kind of carry on after the death of Trinity in that way, I think is so powerful and very and really quite profound. So I agree with you on that. I think the third film is far more compelling than the second, and the second just feels like it happens. The second's there, it's got some great stuff in it, like the ghost twins are just so great, and I love them. And I think your analysis of that being that you like the scenes of the film more than you like the film, I think I would entirely agree with that, for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think I think Reloaded has its place. It is a movie that is designed to. It does a great job of setting up something's not right, something is happening, things are in motion, and oh crap, they're coming, and it
does also bring you the Merovingian for the first time.
Yeah, I won't even attempt to pronounce I've never been able to pronounce his name correctly.
Is that right? I'm going with Merovingian. Makes him sound like a fruit though, or a vegetable.
The French nightclub owner is how I've always just described him.
I like it.
But the third film doesn't get enough credit either for the way that it has informed superhero movies moving forward. If I recall correctly, Superman Returns got the green light based on that, and even if that film wasn't massively well received, it starts a chain reaction then where now superhero movies are just part and parcel of our monthly experience going to the cinema these days. I mean, it seems, or Disney Plus or whatever. So I for all their flaws, and there are a lot, those films have their place. They've expanded the universe in huge ways. The Matrix universe, they explore things that the first film didn't do.
Yeah.
The first film is very safe, as I said, and I think that's where I was coming from with to watch The Matrix Resurrections. I'm bringing all of this with me. I'm bringing all of this expectation that I'm going to get a movie that's going to push the universe forward, but that's also going to push the way we watch movies forward a little bit, even just a little bit. I expect this film to be standing on the shoulders of Inception, of Tenet, of any of those Christopher Nolan kind of big sci-fi movies that have, changed the way that we make, that we make movies now. I'm expecting them to come into a world post Return of the King, post Avatar, post Endgame, and all those visual effects defining movies.
Yeah.
Industry changing movies. Because it's been about 17, 18 years since
it has, yeah.
Matrix Revolution, or since they made those films, I mean, when the films came out was, obviously maybe a year or so afterwards, but
sure. things have come on a long way since then, and you know the big thing that happened with the original trilogy and the leaps forward. There have been so many more since then, and I think I was with you on that. I was with you. I was waiting for that thing. I was waiting for that thing to happen. That thing that kind of jumps out and goes, wow, that's, you know. And I think the film is, kind of to its credit, I think that Resurrections is aware of that. I think it's aware, and I think it's the kind of the meta elements of it are trying, and I don't think entirely successfully, but they are trying to say, we know what you're waiting for. We know. I mean, they literally say the new bullet time, you know, which I found really jarring to actually hear the phrase bullet time said out loud in a Matrix movie. You know, you know, but they're literally saying it. They're standing there and they're saying, we need to invent the new bullet time, and I guess what the film is saying is, we can't invent the new bullet time. We didn't know we were inventing bullet time when we made the Matrix. We didn't know that this was a groundbreaking thing that was going to happen. So just sit down and enjoy the film. And I think that's what it's trying to say. And I don't hate that. And I admire the, you know, the kind of the strength of Lana Wachowski for sitting there and going, no. I'm just going to tell my story and stop expecting stuff of this. Just enjoy the film. I kind of admire it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I kind of admire it.
I had a huge issue with that, and we'll get into that stuff.
Yeah.
Let's do the plot first. The plot is going to be so easy to explain. It is the Thomas Anderson, Neo. Thomas Anderson is a hugely successful game designer living in the Matrix. He doesn't know he's in the Matrix, obviously. This is set, we will learn later, it's set 60 years after the last film. He's in the Matrix. He's aged, 17 years or thereabouts, however long it's been since we saw him in the last movie. And he is a hugely successful game designer. He's won Game of the Year awards and all that kind of stuff. They literally show him with a Game Awards trophy. If you're a gamer, you'll recognize that. It's like the Oscars of video games. So they're really making this guy into like a really big deal. He's not just some guy working at home on a pet project. This guy is a multi-millionaire living in a penthouse apartment. He's got the best life. He's surrounded by adoring kind of sycophantic colleagues who kind of kiss his ass. And he's been told he's got to make a new Matrix game. Now, this is the thing. The games he made, the games that made him successful, were called The Matrix. And it's everything we know about the Matrix movies exist in this world now because he created them as a video game. So he created a character called Morpheus, he created a character called Trinity, he created a character called Neo, the One, and all that kind of stuff. We've got his boss, played by, I think his name is Jonathan Groff. Would I be right?
I think so, yeah.
And I'm going to pull it up on IMDb. And he plays his boss, who we will later learn is Agent Smith. And he even says, our parent company, Warner Brothers, wants us to make another game. So they're not hiding away from this whole thing. And then there's the whole discussion that goes on then about, sequels are crap and they never live up to their originals and blah, 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 right? Meanwhile, there's this character, Bugs, who's working with an agent who is defected, who realizes he is Morpheus, played by Abdul Mateen II, and he is like, he figures out like, there's something wrong. I'm not who I think I am. I think I'm Morpheus, and he and Bugs work together to then liberate Neo from the Matrix. Neo is having these doubts about his own reality, and he's got an analyst played by Neil Patrick Harris, like a therapist, who tries to essentially gaslight him into believing that no, everything's fine. If you think the world isn't what you think it is, that's probably because you made a game that was so compelling. And then they pull him out of the Matrix, but not before he meets Trinity in a coffee shop and realizes, I want to get her out as well. And that's pretty much the movie. I mean, it sounds like I'm skipping over a lot of stuff, but it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, fill in the blanks if I'm missing something there.
I don't think you are really. I mean, other than some on the nose Alice in Wonderland theme music and blue pills flying all over the place with blue glasses and things like that. You know, as it then as it that is it. I think, you know, that's the main driving force of the film. Certainly, the main driving force of Neo's character in the film is to get Trinity out, and you have what is her name, Niobe, return as General as well, which I really enjoyed, to be fair. Niobe returning there in a very difficult situation to, you know, to try and protect Io, the new city, or to allow Neo to kind of go on and do exactly what it is he needs to do. And yeah, then kind of convoluted third act plan happens, and
The
away you
drama
go.
of this film is Neo gets pulled out of the Matrix. He sees what the world has become since he went back in the Matrix 60 years ago, or, you know, assuming 60 years ago. We learn that the machines revived Trinity after she died and plugged her back in.
Well, and him as well, didn't he? Because he
And
died
him.
as well. Yeah, yeah.
Did he die?
Yeah, he did, because they show a really actually surprisingly gruesome um little section where they're rebuilding him, and he has his brains exposed, and they're rebuilding him, and
Ah,
then they
okay,
put
okay,
Trinity down next to him,
yeah.
stuff like that, which you know, kind of furthers the slightly labored Christ motif of the original trilogy, but the not really, kind of kills it, to be honest with you. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm
He
interrupting.
rose again, yeah. But
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
idea that, so the argument that, and turns out Neil Patrick Harris is the analyst. He's like the
Mm.
architect of
Yeah.
this movie, and he said, well, I don't know the exact, but it's like Neo and Trinity together make up the one, and therefore we need to keep you guys close, and so that's why you know each other, or are having these connections within the Matrix. Um,
For reasons.
for reasons. That's a
For
big thing.
reasons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reasons is an easy get out for a lot of the stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
If it sounds like I'm being really cynical about this, I mean, I wanted to make a point about how much of a supporter I am of the originals, just so it
Hmm.
doesn't sound like I'm just hating on the Matrix like a lot of
Yeah.
people do. I I really don't have anything else to add to this plot other than one cool thing that I really liked was the idea that now the machines are in a civil war with each other,
Hmm.
and that a lot of the machines are defecting over to the human side, because they didn't like the truce. The machines didn't, not all the machines, or not all the AIs liked
Mm.
or agreed with the truce with the humans. That's one thing I really loved about the Matrix Revolutions. It wasn't about, like Rocky, it wasn't never about winning. The
Hmm.
master stroke of the first Rocky movie is it's not about winning the title. It's about surviving the, you know, however many rounds there are in the fight. It's about going the distance, you know,
Yeah.
the name of the famous theme music of Rocky.
Mm.
And that's what this journey was for the humans in the Matrix trilogy. It wasn't about defeating the machines, it was about, let's survive the onslaught and just get through the day, and then we'll get through the next day, and so on and so forth. um and I really really liked that about that film. This, and I did love the idea that they haven't defeated the machines. The machines just didn't stop functioning because they hacked the Matrix, or, you know, put a virus into the machine or anything like that. It was, the machines can attack them at any point, and so the
Yeah.
politics of the machine world is, you know, must make them nervous, like the
Hmm.
way the politics of a neighboring
Yeah.
country must make you nervous,
Yeah.
you know.
There's
and
that
I, and I
great shot of Niobe when in her actual, for Jada Pickett Smith, in without all the aging makeup. Great shot of her kind of sneaking along with a band of troops, looking up at the battling going on above, you know,
yeah,
between these machines. And for me, that's the most interesting part of this film.
yeah,
The idea of the political situation, and that is what's going on, what's
yeah,
happening in
yeah,
the rest of the world, what's happening, why these machines and this truce that's come together with the machines, that is a direct result of what we saw Neo sacrifice achieve, is what's happened now, and where has it gone, and it's just
that
not
was
explored, you know.
that was so interesting. And when I um when I saw the trailer is a great trailer for this film.
Mhm.
White Rabbit and all that playing.
Sure.
I assumed Trinity in this film must be an AI. She's been created to keep Neo happy. Keep Neo happy in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Don't give him a reason to leave. Because if he leaves, we're going to cause more problems. Keep him happy. That's all he wants. And I imagined that it was going to be. Do you remember in the first Matrix film, you've got that guy, I can't remember his name, who just wants to go back into the Matrix again, and he's eating a
Yeah.
steak with Agent Smith,
Yeah,
and he's
yeah,
like, I know this isn't real, but
Mm.
I don't know the difference, and so I don't care and all that. And I just want to go
Mhm.
back in the Matrix. I want to be a little bit rich, not too rich, but I want to be comfortable. And he just wants to enjoy eating steak again. And I love that. I thought that was
Yeah.
such a great thing in that film. And I assumed, watching the trailer, that Neo had wanted to go back into the Matrix, that was his end of the deal. Look, Trinity's dead. The humans are going to be all right. I've got no reason to go back to them now. So plug me back into the Matrix. I'll stop Smith. Plug me back into the Matrix afterwards, and give
Let
me
me stay
Trinity. Give me Trinity back in some form. Just
Mm.
make me forget that she died. Make me forget all my troubles, and just give me this woman that I love in some shape, in some form. And that's what I assumed was happening here. And it was going to be this like, Neo, we need you. And he's like, no, I'm not leaving because Trinity is here.
Yeah.
And it just
Yeah.
but instead, by bringing her back, by actually literally resurrecting her physically out in the real world, it kind of just undermined everything that happened at the end of Resurrections.
For sure.
It meant that, and then also, there's, I mean, we can get more and more into specifics as we go, but that it did feel like they had taken. I mean, I suppose we're getting into the nitpicky,
I think
the
I
specifics.
think
I
we
think
can.
at this point, yeah.
Yeah.
My biggest issue with this film
Mhm.
is they went for the low hanging fruit of, let's remake the first movie in what has now become known in the industry as a requel, which I hate. I hate
Yeah.
that term.
Yeah.
Halloween
Not
has been doing
not
it.
a. Yeah, it's a legacy sequel is the other one.
Yeah,
The legacy sequel. It's just, oh my god, stop.
It's really, yeah, it really is. It really is enough. But
Legacy sequel.
it's taking the original plot and revisiting it in a way where it feels like it's still a sequel, but we're giving
Yeah.
you that movie you loved way back. Force Awakens did it. Halloween has done it. A new Scream film has done it. We're probably going to get it with Jaws. We're probably going to get it with Back to the Future. We're probably going to get it with a million other movies.
Sure.
We
It's
kind
the
of got it with
nostalgia trip, isn't it? Yeah.
We got it with Jurassic Park, Jurassic
Yeah.
World as well.
I don't see. The thing is, I don't hate that when it's done well, because there are these wonderful things. I actually, perhaps controversially, I quite like The Force Awakens, and I think
I
The
like
Force
it too.
Awakens as a film, I think it's similar enough, but it sets everything up in the way it should do, and I think enough is changed in the details of the plot without kind of, this isn't a review of The Force Awakens, but my point is that I think that achieves that's its aim, whereas this doesn't, because I think.
But that's exactly the point. Is The Force Awakens had a goal, even if they are retreading very, very familiar territory.
Yeah.
This literally is just the same movie as before, except this time it's, instead of getting Neo out, it's let's get Neo out and then let's get Trinity out. But it's other than that, it's the same. But done way worse in terms of how it's made.
Yeah, it brings me to the first thing when I saw it first, and I went and watched this again last night. I was at a loose end and thought, well, before we have this conversation, I want to check. Just want to check and make sure that this is my actual opinion. And I came out yesterday thinking the same thing as I thought when I saw it a couple of weeks ago, and that is just why that it doesn't add anything. And I wondered if perhaps, okay, this is setting up a trilogy, but delving into this appears to be on its own. There don't appear to be any plans to do any more films, and that's just maddening to me. So you've got one go at furthering this thing, and if it were me approaching something like this, I'd be thinking, well, what can I do to cap off that narrative arc and to really tie up those loose ends and everything like that? What can I do to do that? And instead, they don't do any of those things. They open up more questions. They ask. They actually hurt, I think, in some ways, the legacy of the original trilogy. Especially because you have chosen one story arcs that you have in original films and original trilogies and things like that do not make for good sequel territory, because then you have it underwhelms, it undenies every. Yeah, you know what I mean. It undercuts the whole point of the original story. And to take Star Wars as that perfect example, you have two trilogies, and the prequels and the original trilogy telling arguably one coherent storyline, all following Darth Vader, and you see him from birth to death, and redeems the Force happily ever after, all that jazz, fairy tale, right? Oh no, but wait, it didn't, and it's only like 50 years later that it didn't. Hang on a minute. So what have we been doing this whole time? What have we been doing this whole time watching all this happen? And it's the same thing again. And Neo even says it. And they try to undercut that by saying, no, Neo, you've done so much good and all this, that, and the other. But it just falls flat, because ultimately the Matrix is worse. And I do like the idea that Neil Patrick Harris who is the best part of this film by far. Neil Patrick Harris's character. That's difficult to say. Neil Patrick Harris's character at one point says, well, we realize that when we make you work harder, then you produce more energy. And I love the idea, because the world has got worse since 1999. It's definitely an objectively worse place to live now. And I love the idea that they try and explain that with the Matrix and put that in world. I kind of dig that a bit. But they don't explore it any further, and they don't actually, and it hurts the legacy of the thing, is what.
So the thing that really pissed me off big time with this movie, it wasn't the laziness of let's just rehash the same plot line from the first movie. It was, let's try and get clever and hang a lantern on it, as they say in the industry. Let's be self-referential, and let's acknowledge that sequels are crap, and let's acknowledge that bullet time is how can we top bullet time, and let's we're going to have a game studio in this story that is trying to that is commenting on the movie that we're watching, except they're not commenting on the movie, they're commenting on a game that they're going to try and design. But really, they're commenting on the whole practice of making this movie. How can we make it bigger? How can we make it better? Do audiences care anymore? All that kind of stuff. Parent companies, all that kind of stuff. And literally citing Warner Brothers in this.
Yeah.
It's the laziest. I can imagine the Wachowskis are sitting there, watching this movie in a test screening and chuckling away to themselves, going, "Huh, yeah,
aren't we clever?
Aren't we clever? We're so deep. We're so deep, aren't we?
Yeah.
And it's no, you're not. All you've done is poked holes on. All you've done is shine a light on the things that have now. You've made your film weaker, because it doesn't even seem like you believe in this. Okay, so if you write a screenplay, and let's say you've got a character with deeply offensive values in the film, right? If you don't have an opposing view to that in the movie, if you don't have somebody kick his ass or her ass for that,
then you're advocating for it.
It's not necessarily, but it does come across that that's your voice. It comes across that your voice is this, because you haven't challenged it. You haven't done anything to challenge it. It's one of the things that they do in the Bond films, which in the new Bond films, Bond is still a bit of a misogynistic asshole at times, but they challenge him in it. And so it's saying, but that's not our voice. We've just got different characters here. There's no conflicting voice to this whole meta narrative about, well, sequels are a problem. Reboots are a problem. Do we need a fourth Matrix? All that kind of stuff. These are questions that are literally asked in this movie by characters, and there's no defense of this film's existence. So it feels to me when I watch this that Lana Wachowski made this film because as Smith says in the film, somebody else is going to do this game if we don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And it is very hard for me to respect this film
Mm-hmm.
if now either that is what they believe, or they're not smart enough to write in a conflicting argument.
Yeah.
In order to diffuse and defend the film's existence.
Yeah. And certainly the film itself is not a conflicting argument, because, I suppose arguably you could say if the film was better and if it worked, then the film's existence itself is the argument to the points they're making in the thing, and it's dramatic irony, perhaps.
Blow us away with a highway chase or something, and then we will say, those game designers were wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't do that. And and I totally agree with you. But the thing for me is, the thing that I find along those exact lines is the wasted potential of it. And that's the thing that gets me, because I'm really into fourth wall breaks and meta stuff. I love it when it's done well. And if I ever get round to doing a PhD, that will probably be my thesis. That will be what I would want to look at. And the idea of looking at what meta really means in cinema beyond it being a gimmick. And for me, this film, that particular section of it, Act 1 effectively is just a gimmick. It's just a fun little gimmick, and it just gets you in there. And I find that so irritating, because you can push it, and the whole thing is about what do you believe. And so for me, what this film is a trilogy squashed into one thing. And if you explored it over the course of the entire thing, so you make your whole first film Neo or Thomas Anderson in The Matrix, and he is being gaslit. I don't know how you'd say that. But Neil Patrick Harris's character is, they're getting him in from all different angles, and that basically takes the course of that film, and he gets out at the end. And finds, so the whole time the audience is like on a complete mind trip about what the hell is going on. I also would swap out the video game idea and make them movies. Why are you doing this half-hearted thing? It's just like weird. They are films, so make
just on that. So
yeah,
Neo is a game designer in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's made a hugely successful series of games. We never, ever see the game. Mm-hmm. Ever. We don't see a poster. We don't see a clip from the game. We don't know what this game looks like. It is non-existent. It is just, you're a game designer. Then there's a moment later on where Morpheus brings him to a
theater,
like a theater or something like that. All around the walls are clips from the movie. The scene where Morpheus in the first film gives him the pill.
Yeah.
And Neo says, "What is this? What is all this?" And then Morpheus says, "This is your game, Neo. This is the game you created." And I remember watching it. And we all just stopped and watched it. No, this is a movie. This is not a game. This is a movie. Yeah. Are you like? And it is moments like that. It is genuinely head scratching to me. Why this happened? Why this existed? What their thinking was in allowing that kind of weird moment to exist. Yeah. And it then becomes very hard for me to try and defend the thought process of the meta stuff, for example, elsewhere, or the idea that Jonathan Groff is pretending to be Agent Smith. I mean, I'm sorry, I know he is Agent Smith in this film, but it just feels like a bad impersonation of Hugo Weaving.
I think he's very good, for the record. I think he does a really good job in his own little character, but it's not Smith, and there's no need for it.
Shouldn't have just have been like someone else. Like if he was just a different character, I'd be like, okay, fine, he's a new character, great. I love Jonathan Groff, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yahya Abdul-Mateen playing Morpheus. You're not so Morpheus. Like you're great in whatever you're doing. He is an amazing actor in Watchmen as well. Check him out, and everything he touches. And he is, I think, the best performance in this movie. But I just wanted to watch a whole movie of him. I didn't want to watch him pretend to be Morpheus. I wanted to watch him. And I was so convinced, by the way, because again, it's like this head-scratching thing, right? Of like, why are you getting them to why are you replacing the actors, with younger versions of the you know, it's not even like age
Yeah,
appropriate. And the thing is, I was so convinced. I was like, there's no way they're just simply replacing them. There's got to be something else going on here. And I was thinking maybe Morpheus is this Morpheus is the Agent Smith of this story. Like, he's the guy, because he literally is an agent at the beginning. He's dressed like an agent. And I thought, what if he's the agent? And they call him Agent Smith as well at the very beginning when he starts to question his reality. The other agents look at him and go, Agent Smith? And it's this weird thing where you're thinking, oh, is he going to double cross Neo? Like, is he actually like, hey, I might look recognizable to you. It's because we have history. And then it turns out, actually, I'm your worst nightmare.
But that's
none
the whole
of
thing.
none of that at all. None of that.
No, it's just a thing. But they're breaking their own conventions to the film, because the whole point of it is that Neo and Trinity have their appearance altered, right, to be in the Matrix so they can pass undetected. There's little hints of it, and they show Neo. Agent Smith, Smith also has his appearance altered so he can appear in the Matrix for reasons. They just don't tell us. It's just a thing that he's there for some reason, so he can punch stuff and appear later.
Okay, but just on that, Neo looks like Neo to us. He doesn't look like Neo to everybody else.
That's
but Agent Smith looks like Jonathan Groff to us.
Exactly, and so that's what I mean, is that they're breaking their own conventions. They, and it's clear that they definitely wanted Hugo Weaving in there, and he couldn't do it for whatever reason, and so so they're just like, well, okay, we'll just carry on then. But then you get this Morpheus curveball thrown in there as well, which is that Neo programmed him in a modal, and now he's in the main Matrix, but he's also a program in the real world now, and he's kind of Morpheus and Smith put together because he defined Neo, but
he's also an AI who can appear in the real world.
Nonsense. Just nonsense. Yeah. Why are you bothering? Why are you bothering doing all these narrative jump flips to try and get to this thing? And just so we can look at a character and call it Morpheus, when in fact the power of that character is that he believed so hard in Neo right up until the very end that he took Zion down out of belief because the machines presumably attacked it, though they don't really explain that. That's the real tragedy of that character, and the inclusion of AI Morpheus / Smith completely undercuts the power of that sacrifice.
Just to explain for people listening, so there's a moment in the film, in the real world, in the grim real world in Io, where they go to
it's like a shrine. I guess
they go to the old place. It feels like it's the old place where Zion was, where I don't know if it is the same place. I don't know. Anyway, they go to this kind of cavern area, and there's like this giant statue of Morpheus from the Reloaded, and when he gave his big speech, and it's this kind of, they don't ask like what happened to him or anything like that. I think they're being a bit vague on that, just to maybe he can come back later on. I don't know, but they're showing, like you say, they're showing you the tragedy of Morpheus, or they're just showing you that there is a story,
tragedy of belief
around
as well.
Yeah, they're showing you that there is a story around Morpheus here, and how he refused to believe that there was any other future after the one, that like the one fixed everything. That's the end of the problems. And Niobe was like, no, there could be other problems ahead, and blah blah blah. He was blinded by his devotion to Neo. That's all really interesting. So you're telling me there is a Morpheus in this world. Maybe he's dead, maybe he's not, but you're telling me there's this character. Why then are you also telling me that there's this AI calling himself Morpheus when he's clearly not Morpheus?
Yeah.
Like,
it's just weird.
If he needed to call himself Morpheus in order to allow Neo to, like, oh yeah, okay, and then he just wakes up and he snaps out of the main or whatever. Okay, fine. But the fact that he goes on with the charade that he's Morpheus is just even when we're looking at a statue of Lawrence Fishburne. There's been movies where they've replaced actors in the past, but they don't then show you a photograph of the previous actor.
Yeah, exactly. The narrative conceits that they are trying to employ here make no sense, and it makes it's unnecessarily complex to get to that point. And that's what I mean by wasted potential, is that you don't, if you've given yourself the time you actually need to tell this story and make it a 3-part trilogy, 2 films, whatever it might be, TV series, who knows, then you could explore the fall of Zion, you could explore the Machine Civil War, you can explore these meta elements in a far more intense and interesting way, and actually make them part of the plot rather than just basically a middle finger to the audience. You can make Neo a filmmaker, all of these things, and that really for me is the most unforgivable part of this, is that it's just badly written. It's just as a story, it's just badly written. Just to go very, very quickly to go back to the idea of the game company over the film, which will just always bewilder me. That is that you've written yourself into a narrative corner there for no reason. Like they could just so easily have said, no, he's a filmmaker. He's a screenwriter. He wrote this. He's a director. Whatever it is, he's stand-in for the Wachowskis. So easy, and it's there. And then you have clips from the film, and it kind of looks like Neo, but it's not really because of this, that, and the other. There are things you can do if you really want to employ that stuff, and they just don't. And so for me, this whole film boils down to wasted potential and why, and that. Yeah.
So I was thinking about Neo and what it is that he really wants, like from a character point of view. Strip away all the Matrix, strip away all that kind of stuff, right? What is it that he actually really desires in this movie? Which is so interesting because in the first Matrix film, there's no desire. There's just he's got feelings for Trinity, but it's kind of unexplored, until it's convenient later on for the plot to do that. But in this movie, for once, there actually is this real kind of you could be watching a romance film in parts of this. Neo is in a coffee shop. Neo's in a coffee shop, and he sees Trinity come in with her teenage sons, or her young sons, and he's got his eye on her, right? And he goes over to her to talk to her and, hi, how are you, and all that. And he's really charming and blah blah, and she's really lovely, and it's fine. And in any other movie, this would be fine. Then her husband comes in,
Chad,
and says, hey, we need to go, or whatever. And he's calling her Tiffany because that's her name, because it sounds like Trinity, because that's the level of clever, imagination. Yeah. That's the level of imagination we got here. And like that's as deep as this is getting. And no, but this is so funny. So he's like, oh, we gotta go. Oh, hey, Thomas, is it? Good to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And he's a totally reasonable man. There's nothing wrong. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm remembering it, but you saw it again recently. At no point is there any sign that this man is an asshole to his wife.
Nope.
Right?
Perfectly nice. Yeah.
Yeah, perfectly
I know exactly where you go. I know exactly where you're going with this.
And there's maybe a moment later on where there's kind of like, what's going on here between you two, which I think, to be honest, with the chemistry that Trinity and Neo have, because they do have a little bit of chemistry, one would be forgiven for thinking, is there something I need to be worried about here, but at no point is he an aggressive, abusive, insulting, disrespectful man, right? He calls her Tiffany because that's her name, and she keeps saying how much she hates that name. Now, he's not calling her babe. He's not calling her sweetie or darling or, anything that could be conceived as patronizing, right?
Sure. He's calling her by her name.
He's just calling her by her birth name in this world.
And she wants to kick him in the jaw.
She wants to kill this man. You would swear she is trying to get out of a life of abuse and torment, the way she behaves around him. And there's a moment at the end where Neo is trying to get Trinity to break out, and they're all trying to, and the analyst is there, and all the bots the agents are around them, and Bugs and her gang are there as well, and they're all ready for a big fight. And then the Matrix the machines try to, one last gambit to try and get Trinity to stay. let's bring in the family. And it's almost like they're prodding the family in with a broom or something, to like,
go on, get in.
go on, try and convince
Go
her.
see your mum. Go see your mum.
Yeah, and the kids come in, and the father comes in and goes, "Hey, mom, you've got to come to the hospital. There's been an accident. Someone is in the hospital." I thought, is it the dog or something? I don't know.
In the hospital. Yeah.
Yes, they say somebody.
She.
Yeah. And he's like taking her arm as if to say, "Come on, we need to leave." And I was thinking, okay, he's put his arm on her and she's like, "Get your hand off me," and she's like, "Let me go." And you'd swear this was like, "I will not be a prisoner to you anymore. I will not be, I'm not going to follow your orders anymore. Stop calling me Tiffany." She keeps saying that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, in this world, in this reality, your husband has just told you that a family member is critically ill in the hospital and you need to leave right now. And your reaction is, "Get your hand off me."
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Your kids are so aware of this emergency that they too are frightened.
Yeah,
and your reaction is, "I'm leaving you."
Yeah. I'm leaving you for this random bearded fella, and I'm yeah. I mean, I think it's.
And she even no, but she sorry, just to finish what I thought.
Yeah.
She even goes afterwards to the analyst at the end of the film and like kicks him in the balls or something and says, "This is for using kids." So she's aware that this is a fiction, that there is that everybody was innocent in this. But she keeps her big line of breaking out of the Matrix is, "Don't call me Trinity," or "I hate that name." I can't remember what it is, but it's "Don't call me Tiffany." It's
Tiffany,
a reference to her name, Tiffany, and how much she hates that name. But that's not his fault.
Yeah.
So it's like they desperately just wanted to vilify somebody for the sake of it, and they so that Trinity would have a reason to want to get out of this marriage and get out of this fiction that's been created for her. And that
but they don't set it up.
They don't set it up at all, and it's just, he's calling you by your name.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the
That
crime.
again, that is exactly the thing, though, isn't it? That's what I mean by the wasted potential of it is that if you had another film, something like that, second part of this hypothetical trilogy is all about getting Trinity out of the Matrix, then you can have an entire section of that film where Chad is an idiot. And you can see her, you can see Trinity beaten down and it's awful, and then you have her rising like Phoenix from the flames and kicking him in the jaw and doing everything she wants to, and you can have that and it would make sense and it would be so wonderful. I really want to see that. I want to see her take back her liberty from this metaphorical imprisoner.
Here's what we got. We got Neo wanting to break up a marriage. There's this great line there's this great episode in Family Guy where Brian the dog and Stewie go over to India because he wants to meet this woman that he's fallen in love with. And he goes on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire to make money so that he can pay for a wedding for her because she's in an arranged marriage or something like that, and he wants to marry her instead or something. Anyway, and the host of the show says, "Brian, so what brings you all the way from America?" And he's like, "True love." And then Stewie just shouts from the crowd, "He's breaking up a marriage."
He's breaking up a marriage.
And I just thought it was so funny. I love that line. But that to me is the crux of this movie. Is
100%.
And this is ultimately the thing that, if this is the same as the first movie, here's the big difference in it. The first film felt like a prison break. It was like, we are trapped in hell. I have a job I hate. I have a life that is boring. If this world has a green aesthetic to it, it's because there's mold on the walls. This world is rotting away. This is not a nice world to live in. It's wet. It's everyone is in their cubicles, and it's just this. You're just literally a cog in a machine going around in circles, nothing else, no individuality, nothing. And it's about breaking you out of that. But guess what? We break you out of it. It comes at a price.
Yeah.
The world outside is a lot worse. So you get your individuality.
And you get your truth.
You get your truth, but there's also a price for that truth, right?
Yeah.
In this film, he's so filthy rich. Trinity has got a happy marriage, it seems.
At least on the surface.
And she, yeah, at least on the surface, and she, and okay, fine. If it's an unhappy marriage, they didn't do a good job of exploring that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, but she's got, the love. She's got the kids. She's got, and even if you're in an unhappy marriage, that doesn't mean you want to leave your kids. So I mean, there's something there to keep her in the Matrix.
Yeah.
She's got a great job. She's following her passion. She repairs motorbikes and all that kind of stuff, which she loves. All of that good stuff is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody comes to me and tells me, now I know Neo is having doubts about his existence and all that, but if somebody comes to me and tells me, the real world is scary as shit, by the way. So think twice about your decision. Like you'd really want to have to sell me on this. Now,
100%.
I don't understand why the Matrix if they can rebuild his brain. I don't understand why they did such a piss poor job of like, why is he questioning his reality so much? Because Trinity doesn't seem to be questioning her reality.
Well, I think the reason for that is because he's the one. I think that's probably what it is.
It just feels lazy, though, isn't it?
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think that's what it's supposed to be, though. And I think, and to be fair, I like at the end of it. There's kind of that a wonderful sort of, I'm going to say, feminist comment in there when she does kick the analyst in the jaw, and says that's for using kids, and I like that because it's a great comment on kind of the male visions and views of women, and I like that, but they don't explore it and they don't earn it. That's the thing.
It's not earned. Yeah.
And the thing, and I think that also brings us to a complete logical inconsistency with this film against the original trilogy, is that iconic moment in the I think it's in the second Matrix. There is no spoon. You have to learn.
That was the first one. That was the first film.
Oh, the first one? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
There is no spoon.
Yeah.
So why is Neo having to work so hard to stop these bullets? Why can't he fly? Why can't he do all of these things?
Yeah,
because if it's the theory that I've come to on it is that it's because it's a new Matrix. But if it's a new Matrix, he's going to have to work harder because it's a new Matrix. A, tell us that. And B, why does he have any power at all if it's a new Matrix? Because he's a product of the old Matrix.
Yeah.
And so you're breaking the rules. You're just breaking your own rules. And also on your point there about the Matrix being a place that in the first trilogy, the original trilogy, you want to escape and things like that. They actually make comments all the time at how beautiful the Matrix is in this film. Like Trinity stands on top of a thing when she's Trinity again, looks at the deja vu birds in the distance and the sun's rising over New York, and she goes, "Oh, it's beautiful." And it's like, okay, why do you want to leave then?
Yeah.
And I guess maybe you can say that that's a result of Neo and the deal with the machines and the truce and things like that, and they've built a better Matrix. But Neil Patrick Harris's character, which is still difficult to say, has literally just said, "Oh no, we're making it more difficult for you because you produce more energy." So actually, it should be grimier and it should be worse.
I love how there's currency in this now as well. It cost us it came at great expense. Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna have to wrap this up soon.
Yeah.
The big takeaway for me from this movie as a screenwriter is if you're gonna create characters, you've got to develop those characters well. You can't just simply tack names on them and say, this is Morpheus, this is... Like, you've got to give me characteristics. You've got to give me something that feels more three-dimensional instead of just an impersonation. If you're going to recycle the same plot line from the first movie, you've got to do something that contributes or does something that the previous stories failed to do. And that doesn't mean that it has to be, there has to be that it has to be a reactionary story, but that there should be a value to this that, beyond just it's another Matrix movie, or anything like that. And it's also, play with your ideas more. Make use of the world and the ideas that you've got in play. Like, if you're going to create a guy who's a game designer, have that come into play somehow. I pitched a movie, during the year to an executive who, where the protagonist was an academic. And one of the questions that came back to me is, why doesn't their background in academia play into the story later on more? And I was like,
Chekhov's
yeah,
gun, isn't it?
that's actually a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, it's also, I think, understanding, this film feels like a mood board of ideas.
yeah, it does.
Um,
They literally have a
but
montage at one point, which is basically a mood board of ideas.
yeah, but the strongest idea is and it's the one that everyone seems to be kind of gravitating towards, is the machines are at in a civil war, and machines are joining the humans. That's a really cool idea.
Really cool
Um,
idea.
let's unpack that more. So I think being objectively aware of what the good ideas are, is also very important, and centering and grounding your storytelling in that, and not just having it be a bit of backstory later on.
Yeah.
You know,
For yeah, I think for me it's about I'm a big fan of rules within a world. You build your world, you have your rules, they are limitations, and those limitations tend to help you to grow, and to work and expand within that area. And sure, you can break the rules, but you have to make it logically consistent. Like one of my big things in all science fiction is that everything's impossible. You've got Geordie on the bridge of the Enterprise going, but Captain Picard, that's impossible. Well, it's not though, is it? Because you can do it in a second anyway. And so it completely devalues the whole idea of the word impossible. And in this situation, the rules of the world are broken again and again and again and again, and it creates unnecessary plot holes, and it devalues the world in which you're already existing, in the same way that the use of the word impossible is devalued, and suddenly the stakes are so low because you go, it's impossible, and the audience already goes, it's not. You've suddenly got Neo can't do all these things that he could do a minute ago, but hang on, the spoon. Why? I really wish I had a spoon in my hand. That'd be so cool, wouldn't it? But the spoon. We already know that you can do those things, and we already know that you've freed your mind, because we've just spent 3 films watching your mind be free and all of the things you can do when your mind is free. There is no good reason for you to not have that problem. So for me, as a screenwriter, rules are limiting, but those limitations are so important because it creates narrative consistency, and it allows you to actually grow within those limitations, which sounds like necessity is the mother of invention, right? So create those limitations, create that box for yourself, and fill it up, and use the rules, use those problems as solutions to yourself. What if you don't, all right, so Neo can't do all the stuff he used to do, so then make it so it's because it's a new Matrix. Maybe take away Neo's power entirely. Isn't that interesting?
That would be interesting.
Wouldn't that be an interesting thing to do with that character? And
Yeah.
suddenly he's not Superman anymore, and Trinity isn't either. And we haven't touched on the Trinity as part of the one nonsense. But that whole thing is, again, it breaks all the rules, and it comes as part of that, because you haven't foreshadowed it at any point. You haven't shown us that that's a potential. The 3 films that come before it, apart from their actually quite, as you said yourself, quite chemistry-less romance through the first couple of films. There's no foreshadowing. You haven't set this up. So why now is she such a big part of this whole thing, and it breaks the rules again?
I think that segues into the final point that I have, which is, don't undermine the stuff that came before. If you're going to write a sequel, and I think this is like the golden rule for writing a sequel, you shouldn't. Okay, it can be hard to elevate the world, but at no point should you be undermining what came before. The agents in the first movie are terrifyingly scary. Like Morpheus says, anybody who has ever come in contact with him has never lived to tell the tale. I'm paraphrasing, but you genuinely, like, when Trinity is running away from them, at that opening scene, she gets to the phone booth and all that. That's really great. The idea that you have to get to a phone booth or a phone or somewhere in order to get out, that you can't just be unplugged, is great. The idea that you have to use your own senses, that you might get a bit of guidance in the earpiece, but that there's no one really there to help you, is really great. It's a great video game.
Limitations,
the now there's literally like holographic projections of people helping you, saying, hey, look, go there. Anything can be a get out, a window, a door, anything can be a get out. The agents are like stormtroopers now in that they have no aim, and there's a whole. They keep building up the swarm of bots that at the end, and when they do come, it's like nobody dies. Not a single character in this film dies, none, good or bad, and that just means there's no stakes, there's no drama, and you've now deprived us of the only things that actually injected drama into the world before, to the point where even death isn't a problem anymore because you've got machines now working with you to make strawberries.
Yeah.
In this,
so you can just bring people back to life. It's no problem.
So you can if you can go in and break Trinity out, it's not inconceivable to think that you would be able to break in and use that machinery to revive a dead character if
Absolutely.
Anybody ever died in this movie, so I think it's a very undermining story as well. I think that's a big takeaway. We are going to have to, I think, wrap it up now, and we're going to be talking about the next direction of the Bond franchise and where that could go. So we're going to be doing that next, and that'll be coming out in a few days' time. Thanks very much for joining us today. If you have any thoughts on your own about this, please leave them in the comments. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on all major podcasting platforms. Just search for The Script Department and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't, we're also on social media. Hit the links in the description, and we'll be back tomorrow with another video. Thanks very much, guys.